Welcome back to another week of the Unstoppable Force podcast. I'm Guy,
And I'm Rob.
and today we're going to be talking about the Joker. Wait, is it the Joker or is it Joker?
I think it's just called Joker.
Because I've heard people calling it the Joker.
Which is Joker because he's Joker. It's his name. It's not the Joker.
I mean, he is the Joker, but I guess he's not the Joker because now there's like several Jokers. So there's like this Joker,
This is the
Heath
newest
Ledger's Joker.
Mhm.
So if there's more than one Joker, can you no longer
There's
be
no
the Joker?
Like even if you were playing like the Batman games, like the Arkham games, wherever it's like Joker, they like the goons call him Joker. They don't call him the Joker.
True. Yeah.
Like most of the time it's Joker does this, Joker says that.
I think
Even Batman calls him Joker.
And in this movie at the end, well, I guess we can't. Well, I guess I can't say anything yet. We'll get back to this. Of course, we're gonna start off with the spoiler-free version. I'm just gonna kind of do a review, our thoughts.
Yeah, like overall.
But what did you think?
I thought it was amazing. I think
Really?
Yeah. It was definitely not your standard comic book movie. It stands on its own as like as cinema, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a great score in it. Like the acting's phenomenal. It's more like a I don't know if you can call it a character study. I don't know if it's like the right term for it.
Yeah.
But it's like just follows the one character throughout his transformation. And it's not action heavy. There's some gruesome parts in it. It's kind of
very dramatic.
Very dramatic. Yeah. Like a little bit of gore. But if you're going in because you want to see like Deadpool rated R, like action and like violence, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like another like step, kind of like Logan, where once again we're being proven that comic book sort of stories have a place in really high quality artistic cinema.
Yeah.
And this kind of, to me, like in a weird way, in like a sort of like flipped way, felt like a V for Vendetta, like almost sort of movie, but like where if the main character was V instead, like in a weird way, like where it's kind of this like movement around an idea that forms from like a person.
Okay.
Like as we see them like transform into the Joker or into Joker at the end.
Yeah.
But then also had like this feeling, like you said, more of like a character study of almost like, you ever hear of the movie what's it called again? Shoot. Well, now I've stuck myself in a corner. It's like a movie where you watch like four characters sort of like fall into despair.
Yeah.
Like one over like drug addiction, other one is like dementia, and God, what is it called? It's like a famous movie that's super fucked up as you like watch them like fall into descent. What is it called again?
I'm not gonna know.
I literally knew what it was called going into this podcast, and I can't remember what it's called. I've always known what it's called.
That sucks.
If I somehow remember it, whoever knows the movie is gonna know what I'm talking about if they're watching this. So
they're probably upset with you, annoyed that they know it, yelling at you. But on top of just like the character thing, they did like there was like great narrative, like overall narrative with like mental illness, and like it was a reflection of our society now, honestly. And it wasn't like the kind of hype that it was getting before, when it's like, oh, it's just some incel, like some dude just can't, get some girl, so he's just gonna shoot some shit up and go crazy. Like it wasn't even close to that type of like narrative. It was absolutely more like a man that has actual issues. That's more than that. It's like damage before we kind of see him on screen,
and he's like considered savable almost.
Yeah.
Like he's not somebody, at least at the very beginning, he's not entirely lost. His life is together. He has a job.
Right.
He has, aspirations. Hasn't done anything violent.
Right.
And there's he has a backstory that gets fleshed out, and he's supposed to be a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like, you understand that this is a very
Mhm.
mentally ill person,
Oh yeah.
and I think that they definitely consulted people for this movie.
Mhm.
They wanted to try to give, I feel like, as accurate a representation as they could have to the sort of mentally ill person that they were depicting here.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I think that there's an attention to detail that helps us understand people who have those mental illnesses better.
Yeah.
And I think the idea behind the movie was that our society is failing the mentally ill, and we're not actually, you know, uh, providing for these people, and we're not facilitating environments, social
Mhm.
environments that are helping them.
Yeah.
And then, like, for the people who are exceptionally bad,
Mm.
we're not always getting them help that they need.
Mhm.
We're letting
Right.
them kind of do as they will,
Yeah.
even if it's
Mhm.
not to the benefit of anybody around them or themselves.
Exactly. Like there's not like a line, but in the movie, Joker has like his notebook that he writes in, and like
Mhm.
even he's like, look, he's trying to make a career from being a stand-up comedian, so he writes his jokes in there. And when they show it, they like you see other things that he writes that's like supposed to be his mental notebook. And one line that stands out is, the worst part about being mentally ill is people expect you not to act as if you're not,
Right.
which is like basically like the message here is that like you'll be mentally ill, but like let's just you have to behave like you're normal, and we're not gonna help you, and then like
Yeah.
they're helpless.
And I think that, it's odd because there's something that's similar to this idea that I was sort of just happened to be watching on YouTube. I ended up watching like some of those like videos of like the kids that have different genetic disorders or like mental illnesses and things like that that make them have these completely different lives
Mm,
from us. And one of the people who like interviews them um had sort of mentioned that we all have like this range of normalcy of like what we would consider to be normal, or rather to be like not really that weird. And for somebody who like grows up around mental illness, has family members that are mental illness, people with mental illness and like their immediate family, uh, it's not very abnormal to hear somebody talk about being depressed or understand what
mm,
that is.
all right.
But because there was always this stigma, and even like 10, 20 years ago, if you were to like mention that you had a mental illness, you did it in whispers. It was like
Yeah.
gossip of the neighborhood that
Mm,
somebody has a mental illness or something. Nowadays, we're trying to broaden that like range of normalcy so that we're not so quick to judge
mm,
people, and we have a better capability of empathizing
right.
with a perspective that we could never possibly even fathom feeling
Right.
ourselves.
Right. Yeah. There's like the feeling of like ostracizing these people that like are like on those outer bounds, like you're
Mhm.
saying. But like there has to be sort of way to recognize that, like I know normal is just like a bad like descriptor for everything. It's like what's normal? Like you can't really say that,
Yeah.
but like there becomes a like point where people need help, and you really need to
Hmm.
find that, and you can't just be like, okay, that's a normal way to act, and just ignore it. That's just as bad. You can't say that's normal.
Yeah, I think part of movies and art is sort of pushing change in a direction of like whoever's
Hmm.
making the movie's vision is. And I think the idea of normal is very much like a universal like
Mm.
consensus
Yeah.
amongst a society.
Right.
So like while my range of normal may be wider than somebody else's,
Hmm.
it's almost like if you took the average of everybody's range,
Hmm.
and then like that would be what's considered normal.
Right.
And if like it starts shifting, and more than 50% of the people now consider, depression normal, then the people who are saying that depression is weird are now the weird
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like
Gotcha.
as it shifts and it moves, it's like fluid.
Hmm.
And I think like over the last 10, 20 years, everything is being broadened because the
Yeah.
internet,
Yeah.
especially, it
Mm.
just like if you want to see an autistic kid and what their
Mhm.
life is like and all the difficulties that they have to face on a daily basis,
Mhm.
whether it be as a child or as an adult, or any of these people with different conditions, illnesses, and syndromes and things like that, like you get to understand their perspective better.
Yeah.
Even on like a racial or nationalistic level,
Mm.
you can see what people's lives are like in another country. You see what people's lives are like as another race and what they have to deal with. And I think that like this whole generation growing up is seeing all of the fucked up shit that like we've
Yeah.
done to all these people
Mhm.
and just feel so bad for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why depression's at like 80% because like
Mhm.
nobody who's in school actually thinks the world is a good place anymore because we're not trying very hard to make it a well we're
Well,
I think the next generation is going to do a big job
I mean,
in
I would just
changing
say
things,
that
but
we're also seeing more of the shitty things. So
right.
it's like you're more absorbed into the bad parts. It's easier to see it than like going to school and coming home and like watching your TV and then eating dinner and that's it. Like, you
And
know,
everyone knows school sucks too. It's
right.
designed horribly. There's no
Yeah, well.
point in it. Like, oh, I'm going to college to get debt.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean,
excited.
we're kind of going on a tangent
A
there.
little bit. But
Mhm.
I think that that's like the point of the movie though, is I think a lot of the reason behind this movie and the way it was designed is to try to push that range of normalcy a little wider.
Okay.
Not and this is the weird thing too, is because you could be like, oh, it's normalizing this sort of behavior. No, it's not normalizing anything. No one who watched this movie that doesn't
Mm.
already have a mental illness or is like a terrible human being,
Mhm.
regardless of the movie, is going to think that this is somehow normal or
Right.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they're showing us what not to do or what not to be,
Mhm.
and how if we are a better society that prevents these things, that works harder to give people better lives and better support structures, that we can avoid the Joker
Yeah.
or Joker. Keep doing
Yeah, it does.
that. We can avoid making Joker by being a better society, and I think that
Mhm.
is the message.
It- Yeah, I can agree with that.
Maybe it's not the entirety, just because it's also still a movie that has to entertain and be
Right. I
fascinating
mean, it
and
was like mainly like the origin story of
yeah.
like the one of the most iconic villains of Batman. And like on that note, um, so I think they kept some really good notes from like the comic because like there was I think the director at some point it's like, oh, we're not gonna go use anything from like any of the comics like origin or whatever, but there's definitely some like cameos in there
Hmm.
and some parts of like parts of the Joker that come through that you can see like came from the comics
Yeah.
on top of making it like like I want to say more realistic, but put a twist on it that like kind
Well,
of
because
grounded
he
it a
he
little more.
apparently became Joker from like falling in a vat of acid,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because I never
Yeah,
read the original
yeah,
comics, but I remember that hearing that's it.
right.
And you think like 20 years ago it makes sense. No one's
Mhm.
gonna like make mental illness a thing 20,
Right.
30, 40 years.
Mhm.
How old is Joker? It's like 30 years ago, I
It's
think,
got
right?
no, it's gonna be
More,
more.
40?
Yeah, probably about there. Just
It's
imagine it's
probably
like
like one of the
2020
first.
already, so it's got to be before 2000. So it's got to be
Right, like
like
1980s. That
yeah,
would make
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
So yeah, 1980s. No one has the balls to talk about mental
yeah,
illness. Um, so you had to like come up with this other
mhm,
reason why a character went
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Because it can't possibly be a realistic thing
mhm,
that made him crazy. But now in like 2019, we have like these shootings, we have all these mental illness, like
mhm,
all these people, depression, rampant,
yeah,
everything. Like now we can actually make a Joker that makes sense,
yeah,
which I
definitely.
think is cool. I personally like a real Joker than a we're just gonna come up with a random
Yeah,
origin story
I
Joker.
mean when yeah, I mean that was just like what comics. I don't know.
I mean,
I feel like
sometimes
it's a different.
it's a very simple, like very like
Yeah.
shallow
Well, so the I
story. That's
think
what I mean.
yeah, and then like since that happened though, there's been like plenty of arcs where they like the rumor is or like here's the backstory. Like look, even like I guess in cinema, if you in like the movies with like Heath Ledger Joker, like he says how he got his scars different ways. Like you don't actually
Hmm.
know what made him the way he is. If it's like
Right.
that crazy, like yeah, that's the thing that like bleached his skin and he hates Batman. Sure, whatever. But
Well, I
like
think
what
that's
was
smart because it's like they know his origin story sucks, so let's not even mention it. Let's not even
sure.
pretend it exists.
Sure.
Let's make a joke out of it.
Okay.
And then I think like in other cases where it made, I don't know about the games. Did the games actually address his origin story much?
I don't remember. I don't. I don't think so.
I think everyone
Not
just
Arkham
glosses
Asylum.
over
Not
it.
Arkham. No, I don't think so.
I mean, it sounds to me like most people who are making content around around Joker, they are avoiding the origin
Mm.
story because it's just like mentioned in passing when it's mentioned. It's like one day he fell into a vat of acid and that was it. He was never the same. Done. That's his origin story.
There's definitely comics and graphic novels that have done it, but
Oh
I
yeah,
don't can't name it off the top of my
that's
head.
like for hardcore fans. I think like the further you go out to like fans that maybe aren't so interested in the comics, but rather these like individual separate
Hmm.
stories, like the movies and the video games.
Yeah.
Like you don't really care about this grander, insane
Yeah,
amount
but
of
like that's who's
lore.
gonna care about this movie about the origin of the Joker. Is like the normies are just gonna be like, whatever, like
I
he was
don't know. I
good
don't even though this
and
is
he's
the origin of the
insane. They're
Joker,
like,
it's not a comic book movie at all.
yeah,
It's
but
actually just really just a
yeah, but you can't like. There's such a problem with naming. It's like the problem I have with Jumanji is like had this movie that was based on a video game these characters got sucked into, called it Jumanji. That's just a name. They could have called it anything else you wanted to,
mhm.
but you called it that. It's like calling the Joker, not have any of the notes of like the laugh, insanity, the things that he went through that
Yeah.
they brought into this movie.
Well, I think it just it's like the thing that draws people to the movie to give it a shot. Because if it was just like a movie about a dude who loses his mind and shoots people, it would probably be taken way worse than if it's Joker, right? Because if it's Joker, it's like, oh, we're just making a character from a comic book series and we're using it as an excuse to make this incredibly
Well, you don't
artistic
think like
movie centered around
any
mental
you don't think
illness.
any there's plenty of horror stories that have done this that um like I don't know, Freddy Krueger for example was like mentally ill and then he started killing kids in their fucking sleep. Like there's things that
I
there's
mean,
horror
these
villains that do the same thing. So it's not like
I think
we're not worried about
uh,
horror movie villains doing this shit. Like, you know, it's what happens. Like serial killers in movies, they're fucking right. They're
we always
psycho.
start, but the thing is whenever there's like serial killers, villains, any sort of like bad guy, it almost always seems to start after he became bad. It almost never really starts before. And I mean, you can maybe say like Halloween, the remake one where we see him
Hmm.
as a kid, is
Okay.
like that origin story.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the only thing I can actually think of off the top of my head of like an origin story
Hmm.
for an evil murderous
Hmm.
character.
Okay.
Um, but even then, I think that it more focused on psychopathy, not
Hmm.
mental illness, right? Where it was like this kid was
Okay.
hurting small animals. He
Hmm.
was lacking in empathy. There was these indicators that were not just like mental illness, but more like the evil side of mental illness, like
Well, that's still
antisocial
mental
personality
illness.
disorders, where it's
That,
like you can be like, oh, those are all bad. Anybody
I
with psychopathy is gonna be bad.
yeah,
Everybody
but
with
like,
sociopathy is gonna be bad.
what would you think like these school shooters
They're
might
not. I
have?
mean, some of them might
Might
be,
right? Okay. And
but others are
you don't think you have to
absolutely
lack
not. There's
empathy to
possibilities.
kill people like that?
We say again.
That's like lacking empathy to kill people. Like these are the signs, so it's not like
Well, I mean, the lack of empathy isn't. I'm talking about
solely.
specifically, like once again, sociopathy
But
and
yeah.
psychopathy, which is antisocial
All.
personality disorder. But in terms of it being like depression,
Hmm.
schizophrenia,
Hmm. Bipolar.
bipolar,
Yeah.
there's a very large list of different
Hmm.
things that are not they're capable of making you do stuff that is bad,
Okay.
but it's usually more associated with like heightened emotional states,
Right.
which is
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think more in line with like the movie where it's like he'll enter a heightened emotional state
Okay.
and do things that are bad. And then by the end he kind of gets stuck in it where it's like, well, everything else is fucked.
Hmm.
I really don't
Right.
have any normalcy to return to. I don't have like a happy place.
Okay. Get you. I guess I
Kind
get
of
it.
just start rolling with the chaos because it's the only thing that's comfortable anymore.
I mean, regardless, I think if this Joker was like it was just depression and then he went crazy and did this, we would have a problem with it.
Right.
It needs like actually have a basis in the type of mental illness that he has. So I think even if you had a character that wasn't Joker that went through what he went through and did that same thing, you can you can still have that. I think the outrage just shouldn't be there. It should be the same type of like whether it's a character that was based on a comic or a character you come up with that has the same thing.
Well, I think the
I'm saying.
media just likes to run with this idea that if you make something about something, it means you're endorsing it.
Yeah.
Universally it's like, oh, it's like that guy in England who made
Yeah.
that video about the dog who
Oh.
was like hailing
Oh yeah,
Hitler
he
and
had his dog. Yeah.
and it's like just because he made a video that made Hitler a dog and it's like
Yeah.
cute or whatever, and it was a joke, doesn't mean he's endorsing it.
Right.
In fact, the whole point was that he was making his dog the ugliest thing he could imagine
Right.
making it in order to prank his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So he was like, "What's the funniest thing that is the complete opposite of what
Right.
my girlfriend sees in this dog?"
Right. Or
Let's
it's
make
like
it Hitler.
or like even go to like Roots when they're doing slavery stuff. Just because you make it and like it's historically accurate and as fucked up as it is, that's what happened. You can't be
Was
like,
there controversy back when
no,
like
I'm just
Root
saying like
came
it's
out?
if he were to do that.
Yeah.
I'm saying you can't like just because something happened and it was bad doesn't mean that you're endorsing that thing that is bad.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like if you're
that's what I'm saying.
I guess it's like in that case it's so bad that you can't imagine that they're endorsing it and so therefore you have to assume the opposite.
But you can't assume that about Hitler. Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, is because I think that we're so paranoid about like white supremacy, and I think I mean, there is definitely a lot like more loud white supremacy right now than there's ever been. I don't think there's more. I just think it's that there's empowerment of those
Yeah.
people to be louder.
Right.
Um,
Voices.
but I think that because it's a sensitive topic within our society, that's why it gets this treatment versus like slavery, which is not a hot topic in our society. I think every person except for those white nationalists would agree that there shouldn't be slavery and that it's horrible and it's inhumane.
Right.
And we've thought that for a very long time now.
Mm.
So I think that because it's such a general consensus, you can come out with a movie about slavery right now and it'll just be like, oh, well, they're doing it because they're honoring and they're trying to show the history of these people and you know how they overcame the difficulties that they faced. And like it's kind of this sort of different perspective, but now it's like if you're looking at somebody with mental illness who then turns to violence because we're dealing with it right now regularly in our society, you're able to go, well, what if this triggers a shooting, even if it's not meaning to? Like, and honestly, I was in the theater and I was thinking, like, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen now when he shoots
the dude.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, we can't get there. We should probably switch over into the spoiler zone. So I mean, before we switch into the spoiler zone, do you want to give like your final rating?
Okay, I mean, you should tell me yours first because I kind of said how I really liked it. I don't really know.
Does that
Get
make
your
it like a
vibe.
9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10? I'm thinking
mean,
like an 8.5, 8.75. Like, it
okay.
doesn't just hit a 9 for me. It's like really, really high 8.
Okay.
Because, go good.
I mean, I'd probably give it a 9. I definitely like just seeing it once. I definitely want to go back because there's some things that you like would miss or that you want to really notice, like that went through, that you can look back on. And I think that although there was only like a few times where I'm like, why is this scene here? Like, this is not really a spoiler, but like, through one of his breakdowns, he just gets into the fridge like it's like a minute of him just clearing out the fridge and going and sitting in it.
Yeah.
And then that was part of the scene. That was it. It was like, okay, we never seen him like break down like this and do this thing. Like, why the fridge? Like that was like kind of weird out of like nowhere. And like, yeah, like it's kind of easy to be like, oh, it's unexplained because that's just like a breakdown that can happen. But like when you're noticing his other like
I
the
think it's
way he
supposed to be like an
reacts.
impulse.
Yeah.
Which I could
Yeah.
see, like, since, I mean, with mental illness, like maybe you just like look at the fridge and you go, maybe if I just like freeze to death, this will all be over or
Maybe,
something. And
yeah.
you just put yourself in there and you sit in
Mm.
there for like 30 minutes and then you like, fuck, should probably get out of here. And you get out. But like
Yeah.
just this need to like punish yourself almost, I feel
Right.
like.
Yeah. There's
When
just
you're
like
feeling
some
like
things like that,
trash.
but other than that, like between the acting and just the descent, like the slow burn of
Hmm.
of of like his mental state, honestly, that
Yeah.
was like like you it was set up so well that you're like, oh, like this is like he seems all right,
Hmm.
like, and then it like is more and more revealed about like like who he really is
Yeah.
versus just like the things he goes through. It's not like he's reacting to his world alone. It's like something else had to be there beforehand. On top of the score that they had,
Hmm.
like the music just is like full like cinema, honestly.
Yeah. No, it's very much an artistic movie.
Hmm.
And you kind of have to go in with this mindset like this is a very very artistic movie and it's supposed to like kind of bring you along on this ride, this roller
Hmm.
coaster of another person's like
Yeah,
fall into I don't want to say like insanity but like almost sort of
I mean, I go
fall
there.
into like being consumed by their mental illness, I
Yeah.
think is like a better way of describing it,
Okay.
like consumed by it.
Yeah, yeah.
um yeah, so my score is like I guess like 8.75. Yours you said is 9. And now we're gonna switch over to spoiler
Yeah, I
zone.
mean,
Woo!
if you agree with us, let us know.
Yeah, if you gotta leave right now, tell us
Well,
about whether or not you're excited.
yeah.
You know, whether or
Yeah.
not we changed your minds on whether or not you're gonna see it.
Hmm. Right.
If you hate superhero movies,
Go see it.
go see it because it's not a
Yeah,
superhero
it's
movie.
not
None.
for. It's not even like Deadpool that was rated R that had crazy violence like that and jokes. Like this is dark and very, like honestly, like cinematic.
I think there's only like one point in the whole movie that I actually like laughed for real.
Yeah, yeah. There's even points where like it's like sort of a joke.
Hmm.
Like there's a joke there, and you're like, ha ha. Like you're like, I
You're like
shouldn't
not
really
sure.
laugh at that because if it hurts, it's like feels weird. Like if I was in that situation, I'd be like, or like, yeah,
The one scene that was funny
oh,
though
oh,
was amazing. Okay,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
switching into
Okay,
spoiler
let's
zone.
now.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Um, that scene was so good
What in the
though.
apartment?
Yeah, the apartment where he kills his
His
friend,
coworker,
his
I
coworker.
guess, whatever.
I forget the midget guy's name too. It's like Paul or some. I don't
Yeah,
know. It was like Pete and
I don't remember.
whatever their names are.
Yeah.
But when he had to get up to open up the door because it
It
was
still like
locked.
fucks with you. You're like, is he gonna go and open the door for real? Like, oh yeah, yeah. He goes to open the door and like he can't reach
Mhm.
the chain to undo it, so he needs Joker's help. And then he goes to do it, and he like you can't tell when Joker gets up to do it. Like, did he like set that up to fuck with him anyway? Like that he
Mhm.
couldn't open the door and just go to open the door. I was like, I almost thought he was gonna like smash his head in the door. I don't know, just because that like I was expecting that, but
But it was kind of weird too, because then it ended up being sort of sweet
yeah.
when he was like, "Thank you, you're the only
Yeah,
one who ever was nice to
yeah,
me," and he gave
exactly.
him a kiss.
Yeah.
And then just like kind of I think brings it right back to the point we were making about the whole
Mhm,
like this isn't actually like he is a bad person and he's what he's doing is horrible
mhm,
and he killed people.
mhm.
But even you can even say like when he killed people, he was doing it in self defense until he ran out of the train and like hunted or the subway
Oh,
and
yeah, shot
hunted down the
that dude.
guy.
Yeah,
Or actually it was a train. So
the train,
um
subway train.
I think it was the train, not the subway. It's like the train into like Grand Central that we take because it was outside and they had like the stairway up and around and that's where he shot him on. It was on that stairway
Oh,
up. So it was
I
above
mean,
ground, therefore it's I think it's a
no, it
train.
wasn't above ground.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't in a subway. It was outside on like one of those platforms that like we would get on in order to go into
That
the
was
city.
underground though.
Was it?
Yeah,
Am I
man.
crazy?
I mean,
I thought I
whatever.
remembered
Maybe we're
not being
remembering it wrong.
underground.
Either way, doesn't matter. Semantics.
Okay. Either way, like before he killed the third guy, he was acting in self defense.
Sure. That was like
Like
the first time like
No,
he
of
was doing
course.
anything anyway.
No, what I'm saying, there's this idea that they keep going on with the movie until like the very end when he goes on the show and
Hmm.
actually like shoots
He
Murray.
killed his mom,
Yeah, he killed it right. That's true. He killed his mom before that too. No, but okay,
and he
you're missing what I'm
no.
saying. I'm
All
saying
right, go
like
ahead.
throughout the movie, they'll make him do something bad,
Okay.
and then they'll make him be nice about something to someone. And I'm trying to say that it's related to this, like once again, the
I
idea of
don't.
like the mental illness.
I
You not
think the
understand what I'm saying?
no, because the only instance of that is in the apartment.
Yeah,
Like, give me another instance where he did something bad, then he did something nice.
I guess I'm not saying it right because you're right. He didn't do something bad, then say something nice or whatever. I'm saying like throughout the movie, he's nice and he's a nice person,
Hmm.
and then as things happen to him, he does bad things.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's kind of like what I said earlier, like the idea of being savable.
Hmm.
And
Right.
I think that's part of this movie is this idea that he was made
Hmm.
by society. He
Right.
is not inherently a bad person. It's not good and evil. There is only gray, and
Mm.
that people become evil
Okay.
through their experiences individually.
Right. And the thing is, if you notice, he actually only killed people he that either directly like hurt him or indirectly hurt him, or like it definitely affected his life.
Yeah.
So like dude that gave him the gun, he can easily blame him for getting fired because the dude gave him the gun and the gun fell out. The gun came from him. Let me,
And then he
he's
lied and was like,
right.
yeah, he was trying to
Exactly.
buy a gun off me,
Right,
his
exactly.
boss.
And then his mom, obviously, for all the mental trauma from as a kid,
Hmm.
just like tell him to smile while he's getting his ass beat.
I mean, she seems like a bit of a victim
Right,
as
but he's
well,
still like
but
it's
that's not how he's perceiving it. He sees
exactly
her as
right.
like supposed to
Well,
defend
like he's
him.
also
It's his
pushing
mom.
off his
Hmm.
responsibility for his life because if he didn't bring the gun with him, he wouldn't have dropped it in the hospital, right? And that whole situation
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened. Like he could have decided to leave the gun in the locker, for example.
Right.
That was a decision he could have made, but he doesn't see it that way. Like he gets to point at people. So like even Murray, right? When like oh he made fun of him with the putting a stand up on there, everybody's laughing
Yeah.
at him. Like that's like, and then he's gonna bring him there to laugh at him. He's like that's basically gonna cause him more shit and more trauma in his life. So he's like
Hmm.
fucking let me off you now. And then he didn't kill the other people in the room. He just killed the one dude that was gonna directly
Yeah.
affect him and cause him more trauma.
Yeah. No, so I mean, there's just an element of like sympathizing with the character, and they always want to bring you back to this idea that he's not wholly bad.
Mm.
That's kind of what I meant. Not,
Yeah,
not that he's
I
like
mean,
doing something good after he does something bad, but rather that there's always like some action. I guess that's the last one before we see him go like full Joker, and I think once he goes
I
like
think
full
once you put the
Joker,
makeup on, I mean, like I think it was like that was when he went full Joker. Was when he went out there.
yeah,
Once
once
he
he
called
like
him
finished,
Joker and he was that, like he started talking fine. Like at first he was like kind of but then like once he was fine, like yelling at him, like you
hmm
want to hear a joke is like what do you get when with a man like me when society leaves him behind, like what you deserve, and then he offs him. Like that was when he was that scene right there, when before right before he kills him, he was full Joker. Like I think with the makeup kind of made him
yeah,
that because he was no longer really laughing like that. Yeah, I don't
and
think he
he
actually was.
Yeah, he put the mask on. I think a part of it is the mask. So this idea of like that he's not Arthur Fleck
Right,
anymore.
right,
When he went on to the show at the end
right.
after, all of everything, he became the Joker. And then you could see like when he first sits down, he's actually very stressed.
Yeah.
And he doesn't talk for like
Hmm.
a few seconds and he's like, "Fuck. I have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm going to say." And then like as he starts to speak, he like gains this confidence
Mm.
in his like judgment of society and starts to like monologue and has an incredible amount of confidence and
Hmm.
charisma comparatively to when he was Arthur Fleck only
Right.
like a scene or two prior to that.
Even like the way he was talking afterwards, like even at the camera when he got up, it
Hmm.
was definitely different. Like his obviously his demeanor and just the way he was talking. totally felt like he was all in to who he was at that point. Like then go, like being in the cop car and just
Hmm.
like the way he was looking, he just that he found out who he was.
He like felt
That
comfortable.
right, exactly in his body.
And it's kind of fucked up, but I think like part of it too is that with everything that mattered to him fell apart, right? So he loses his job, realizes that who he thought were his friends are like kind of douchebags,
Hmm.
like at work.
Yeah,
His mom is a liar. She is part of the reason he has the condition that he has, and all of the things that are wrong with him are her fault in
right.
very large part.
Mhm.
Um, he thought that Thomas Wayne was
Yeah.
his father
Hmm.
and got punched in the face by the guy.
Yeah.
Uh, so and then also with the whole woman thing, the woman that
Delusion.
he
Yeah.
ends up becoming infatuated with,
Mm.
and then he literally has
Right.
delusions of her and thinks
Yeah.
that she's like with him and is
Mm.
like engaging with him and
It was
having sex with him and
like so.
dating him.
I want to just say that like the sort of like talk about this movie was part of like just oh he's just an incel that like school shooter type deal, and now like when I was watching the scenes when he was following her, I'm like okay like this is what's gonna be like he's gonna be rejected by this whole thing, and then you can easily point to like the prejudgment of this movie was bad and in no way even close to what actually happened in the movie. And
Yeah.
so I was just concerned with like him like that thing being like what gets pointed out in this movie and him like following her and then going in and this whole shit happening. But
Hmm.
then he doesn't go in and he just stays away, and then she's like, "Oh, you follow me?" And then like he like you don't know that he like that they're not together when they go and do like the date or whatever. Like I
Right.
have
It
a
was
big
kind of
date.
confusing. It
I thought
almost seems like, what the
hmm
fuck? Is this
right.
real? Like, you feel uncomfortable. Very
Yeah. I was
uncomfortable.
like, this is it, I just it wasn't even a case of like bad narrative. Like I don't know.
I thought it
I
was almost
felt
like they
weird.
wrote badly or something, that they
Yeah,
were
I think
trying
they
to like.
didn't do that very like that was probably the one thing that they probably didn't do that well, where they
Well, they
showed
did
you
it well
something.
and didn't do it well.
Okay,
That's the kind of confusing part.
like the execution, like the theory was good, the execution wasn't that great. I think
But isn't the fact that we thought it was real along with Arthur mean that it was great? But
I don't think so.
I think that after you find it out, there's like a feeling of like,
Yeah, I guess they
oh,
can't tell us, but if it was the case of like unreliable narration, right? Where
mhm.
like it's from the Joker telling like basically what's happening. That like we weren't set up for that, so that was kind of an issue. It's
Right,
like
it's kind of like
mhm,
not knowing the
mhm,
rules
right.
before you go and you like play a
Yeah.
game.
Well, like when he's has the delusion of going on the show
I
like
guess that is
earlier.
our like rule that they're
Mhm,
showing us. Like, oh, he can be seeing things that aren't real. Be
mhm.
prepared for that.
Right, like we didn't know if he went on the show for real or not. Like we could imagine that it was just like like a dream that he wanted to go on and like be like, "Oh, I love you," and then like he brings him on stage,
Hmm.
and like that happens. But like you can kind of like that was like, oh, you can probably guess that wasn't real, just based on like them watching that every night,
Right,
the
because it
show
was
every night.
very grandiose.
Yeah.
But honestly, the more I think about it, the more we talk about it, the more I think that they did a good job with it.
Mm,
Because I think if we ask ourselves, did they accomplish the task that they set out to complete?
okay.
Then it's to establish the fact that he can have grandiose delusions
Mm,
with that first scene of him going on the show.
mm,
And even in that scene, we initially are not sure if it's real or not until
yeah.
it starts to get like very big
Yeah.
and like very obvious that it's kind of like a dream.
Yeah.
Um, and then we only realize it like 3/4 of the way through that it's definitely fake.
Mm,
And then same thing with the girl, right? I think most of this movie is supposed to be from his perspective. And I'm not sure, but I don't actually think there's a single scene in the entire movie that he's not present.
okay.
Like if you look at a lot of other movies, there'll be several scenes without the main character present.
Yeah.
In this movie, there is not a single scene without Joker present. As
Okay.
far as I can remember, I could be wrong. So feel free to call me out
I
if in
can't
the
remember.
comments if I am. Um, but if that's the case, and I think it is because of the way that the whole movie is designed, is that we're supposed to try to become Arthur.
Okay.
And that's why they deceive us intentionally with that first dream sequence with the girl. Like they want us to almost think that it's possible that this is actually happening
Yeah.
because he thinks it's possible this is actually happening. And then when you find out that it's all fake, just like he is,
Right.
you have this feeling
Oh
of
shit moment.
disappointment.
Yeah, yeah. It was like
And
a
like that you feel almost betrayed by the movie
mhm.
that he's not with the girl, or like that he's,
Yeah.
I mean, not that you do feel betrayed, but like
Mhm.
you're like, what?
It,
Oh,
it was well, so I think is because of the character. Like, there's like oh shit moments. Like this wasn't real. Like it happens in like Fight Club, right?
yeah.
Where you're like oh shit, like and like the sound effect happens. But with this, because you know the character and how fucked he is, like when that happens, you're like okay, it's not that doesn't just affect a normal person in one way. That fucks it up way harder. Like he'd
Hmm.
probably go even crazier than somebody that would realize this is happening,
Yeah.
and it was just way worse.
So you kind of like feel his, I think,
Mhm.
his emotion in that moment,
Yeah.
which is then, I think, reflected in you thinking like, oh, they did it badly.
Mm.
Because I don't know if they did it badly, because
No.
if the whole
Yeah.
point of it was to make you
Oh, right.
legitimately, genuinely believe that it was happening, be confused by it,
Mm.
and then when it's explained
Right.
afterwards, be like, oh, well, that sucks for him.
No, look, it worked in the end, I
Yeah.
guess. Just like when it was happening, it was just confusing.
Um, I mean, other than that, it was kind of cool how they showed Bruce having his parents get shot too
Yeah.
towards the end.
You know what's one weird thing though is like just like a nitpick, I guess, especially for like the really more hardcore fans, is how old Joker is compared to
Right.
Bruce. He's like 30 years older or something like that. So when he becomes Batman, also like usually Joker isn't Joker without Batman. So like with the original backstory, but that's a whole separate thing.
Batman's supposed to be late 30s, early 40s.
I'm just saying like the
I
Joker
wanted to like
doesn't
run the
become
math.
the
Just
Joker
right.
without Batman like in the original story, right?
So
He
Batman
caught
comes first and then causes
yes,
Joker.
yeah, yeah. And then Joker comes back and doesn't, does all that stuff. But in this, he's just so much older. So if you play out the timeline, Joker's like old as fuck.
Honestly, I think the whole timeline thing was just for the
Yeah.
cameo.
No,
That was the whole
I
thing.
liked it. It was just a nitpick, like I said. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't really. And if this is a one-off, it's
Mhm.
completely fine. We get to see that
I mean,
whole interaction.
I think it's a valid nitpick though, based on what I'm saying, in that I think that the whole timeline they chose was just to have the one scene where Bruce's parents get killed. Like
You think
literally,
so?
I think that they could have made him older.
How much older?
They could have made him like 25. They could have made him
Yeah, but I
I
think
guess
the
then
other
you also, the
scene when he
Thomas, the whole thing about him being his
yes,
father
yes,
thing, then
and
that wouldn't be accurate too, right? So that's
I
actually a
feel
big part
like
of the
him
movie.
going to the Wayne Manor and like doing the trick for Bruce that wouldn't work either if he's older.
Hmm.
I think that worked really well because like that was the beginning of like that's Alfred. I think that was supposed to be Alfred. That
Yeah,
you're right.
was it?
Mhm.
It's weird.
Yeah, I didn't really catch at
Yeah, and in
first.
the moment I didn't, but
Yeah,
now that you mention it, yeah, I
but
guess that's Alfred. But Alfred, I feel like they could have
so
made him more interesting than they did in this movie.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think the whole idea of like, oh, she was insane, like blah blah blah, like you don't
he
know
was
who's
kind of a
telling the
douche
truth.
about it.
Like
Yeah,
you don't know who's telling the truth, right? Because you can be like some billionaire, some famous dude, like trying to cover his ass, say somebody's just crazy or lying to keep them like shut up, or is it true or not? Like that, I thought they did really well. Is like we didn't know
yeah.
if we're like, was she really insane
Maybe that's
or
why they
not?
made him kind of a douche. Because if he was
Yeah,
like super nice about it, then we probably would have believed him.
right,
But then if he's like kind of a dick and like, no, she was crazy, get the fuck out of here,
right,
then it's like he might just be saying.
yeah. I think that worked really well. And then obviously when Thomas Wayne does that whole thing, it's like she was insane. It's like, are they really trying to cover this up, or is this actually true?
Yeah. No, I did not fully believe that it wasn't true
Hmm.
until the Insane Asylum files.
Yeah.
And they're not calling it Arkham Asylum. It's what was it again in
At
this
the end,
one?
he was in Arkham Asylum, but not that. That was Arkham General Hospital or something. Arkham something.
Well, yeah, something like that.
But
It
in
was
the
like
end, he
something
was in. I
hospital.
think he was in Arkham Asylum. Unless that's supposed to be the same hospital. We don't really know.
I guess they didn't specify that it was in Arkham Asylum at the end, did they?
I mean, there could have been like documents or something we didn't catch.
Mhm.
Like I would probably have to see that again,
And
or like name
also,
tags.
just to like address the end, did he get out? Like, did
Just
he kill that fucking chick?
okay. I want to say he killed her, but I want to also say that he was just walking around and then he got chased down. I don't think he got away. I think like
Right.
he's just like that's it. We don't
I
really
mean,
know,
they just
but
very left it very open ended, but like
mhm.
actually, honestly, in a weird way, I actually think that last scene was the worst scene in the movie, just because like he walks out with like blood on his shoes, and
Mhm.
it's like they didn't really make any sense of what happened. If you're did he kill her? Did what happened? And he's just like running around, running
I mean,
left and
hon,
right.
does it really matter that he if he killed her or not? Like you'd see blood, so he definitely fucked her up at least at the minimum, and
Hmm.
he got out of the room. So like, right? That's what really matters. Like he
Yeah,
could have
it
killed
just
her or
felt
not.
like an annoying extra piece of information that was like it's like they tried to do like the whole, oh, let's try to find a way to make it open ended, but then they ended up like making a scene that kind of was just like weird and out of place to me comparatively
Um,
to the rest of the movie.
okay. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know if because the Joker is really like he like in general like when he gets caught or whatever he just he does a way to get out. So like he
Hmm.
like could have played her and then like, fucked her up and
No,
then
but what I mean, like,
so like
you even said this earlier. You said that the only people he killed were the people who he
directly, yeah, like if
directly were doing something to him.
mhm,
And it just like I think the rules that we learned about his character up
mhm,
into that point, even once he, I mean, maybe you could say once he fully became Joker, it didn't matter anymore.
mm.
But then, like he,
Well, he's
he.
not free now. Like he doesn't think he's insane, and they're holding him back. I mean, I can just
But
vouch
that's what
for
I'm saying. We
him, right?
don't.
I can make excuses for that,
Right.
right? We don't really know.
But that's what I'm saying. He put like the last scene puts us in a position of making a ton of assumptions,
Yeah.
and that's what I kind of didn't like
Okay.
about it. Because I was like, okay, we have to assume that he beat the crap out of her, and we have to
Mhm.
assume that he broke out of the room and that there wasn't locks or guards or
Mhm.
anything. We have to assume that there's no normal security in this hospital. He's just kind of like prancing,
Yeah.
right? He's not running. Is he afraid? Is he trying to get out? Then he runs left and he runs right. Did he get out? Did he not get
Mhm.
out? So I think that they tried to make this open-ended ending kind of
Okay.
thing, but then I feel like it didn't fit the
I
tone
think
of the
that
rest of the movie.
okay, yeah, yeah. I think it fits into like our standard idea of Joker, right?
Yeah.
And that's like kind of maybe what they were going for, where it's like
Mhm.
now he's Joker, now you're gonna see like what he would do like this, but yeah, it didn't fit with the rest of the tone.
Because I guess he really wasn't Joker
Hmm.
until like the very, very, very end.
Yeah.
And so like, is he now at the point where we no longer can empathize with him? Right.
Mm.
I think since the whole movie tried so hard to get us to think like Arthur Fleck
Yeah.
and to understand Arthur Fleck, is that maybe that's why it felt weird because like
Mm.
I couldn't understand him anymore at the very very end there in that
Mm.
scene,
Okay.
right? Because I couldn't think of why he would beat up the woman. I couldn't think of why he was trying to escape.
Yeah.
I didn't have any sort of frame. Whereas everything up to that point, you understood why he made the decision.
Maybe he just fell so far into it, like that's what
Yeah,
supposed to
maybe he's
happen.
like at the point where he's true Joker
Yeah.
and he's now just a crazy man
Hmm.
doing random things without
Hmm.
order, without chaos.
With chaos.
Or sorry, with chaos, yeah, just causing chaos.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like what they were trying to do, like the transformation complete
Yeah.
in the last scene or something.
Yeah.
I definitely hope they do a sequel.
I don't know if I don't know, because then we're gonna get like just I think
We
that it
saw his
will be
origin. I want to
different.
see him. I want
It
to
will
see
be
this.
so different though, because you know
It would
how
be.
um like Joker usually gets like goons or whatever, right?
Hmm.
But in this, like, he started a movement and a whole thing, and it's all about him. They're looking up to him. So before that, he hasn't like he didn't feel like he wanted to control other people, tell people what to do. It was just like they're looking up to him like their god, like their savior. So
Yeah.
now it's like, all right, is he still their savior? Because like we're gonna have like the riots probably be snuffed out, and then
Hmm.
Joker's put away, and that's it. So he's gonna come back out and be like,
We also had to assume that
yeah.
because, and that was another weird thing for me when I was watching the movie. I was like, is this a vision then?
Well,
Since he
didn't he
was
get a?
in the,
Mhm.
since he was just like appeared in his cell. talking with the social worker again, I was like, did him
Yeah.
standing on the car with everybody around him, like,
Was that
was
just
that a grandiose dream and he never
right?
actually even got crashed into by the cop, like by another car while he was in the cop car?
Right.
But then I was like, but then isn't the guy who crashed into the cop car also supposed to be the guy who shot Wayne,
No.
Bruce Wayne's parents?
No.
I thought because they was wearing the same jacket.
No. It wasn't.
Wasn't the same
No.
dude?
The other dude was standing on the side, saw them come out, and then walked over there. And the other dude was carrying him out to the car. Just different dude.
Okay. I thought I remember them looking very similar. Maybe it was
It's
just
just
an
dark.
accident.
Yeah.
By like costume department or something. But you don't
Yeah.
actually know then.
If he got arrested again.
Like, did he get
Yeah.
arrested again? Did he actually never get hit by that
Mm.
other car? Because that could very well have been a grandiose dream.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movie, every time it tried to make us think that he had a dream, it ended up being fake. But they started off with making us think it was real
Mm.
to then crush us with the fact that it wasn't.
Right. They
So
just brought him to the asylum instead of him getting out.
yeah,
Could
so
have happened.
I think that's the other reason why I hated that scene at the very, very
Oh,
end.
man.
That's
Yeah.
honestly the only scene I didn't like.
Yeah.
Because it added this layer of unnecessary, annoying confusion.
Yeah. It's like filling in the blanks that they didn't really. Yeah. They didn't explain it at all. Yeah.
They didn't explain a single part of the scene. They didn't explain why he killed her. They didn't explain why he was there. They didn't explain how
Mm.
his entire group of people that were surrounding him just disappeared. Like, nothing was explained for that scene. It just
Okay.
felt like tacked on.
Yeah. So I think everything that led up and including the scene on TV was almost perfect, if not perfect. And then
Mhm.
like after that, they're like, "This is the Joker now. Let's just do Joker thing." Like in the
Yeah.
last couple scenes. Okay. The one thing it was when I was just watching him when they picked him out of the car and he stood up, I was like, I don't know, man. The costume department could have done a better job, like with this. Like I know he just got hit by a car or whatever, but like his makeup was just like not really there at all, and it was just kind of faded, and like he was like kind of bloody. But then when he put his finger in his mouth and like
Yeah.
smeared the blood, I'm like, all right, that looks fucking sick. So I was like, all right, that's fine. I completely random.
I think they did a good job with everything except for that last scene.
Yeah,
But the thing is that you have to go into this movie knowing what you're getting, or else you will be like, "What the fuck?"
yeah,
Still can't remember that other movie.
yeah,
Been trying to this whole time.
yeah. I would classify this as like it's not thriller. It's just suspense, most kind of
Yeah, it's like suspense. It's dramatic
dramatic
suspense.
suspense, definitely.
You ever see like Memento?
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm not
Okay.
saying it's the same. I think it's the same like format though. It's this like
We're
main
putting
character
this
with some
together.
sort of like thing. We're putting it together.
Mm,
We're watching the character experience this thing that they have to deal with, and then they slowly become crazier and crazier, and then
yeah.
by the end, like he kills the guy who's supposed to be his friend in Memento.
Right.
Oh, spoiler alerts!
Oh yeah.
Fuck. Um,
What, like a 20-year-old movie?
yeah, fuck you guys if you haven't seen it. Honestly, I really didn't spoil anything. The movie itself it's the journey, not the ending, really. In
Well,
these
also
kinds of
you know that in
movies.
the beginning because it goes from the beginning to the end to the beginning.
That's
Like,
true. Yeah, it's in reverse chronological order. So
yeah.
also a spoiler.
That's probably the bigger spoiler.
That's probably the bigger spoiler.
Well,
Okay, either way, it kind of was like that sort
yeah.
of feeling of a movie where it's like mysterious
Mm,
and it's like about a single character like not overcoming but like dealing with and succumbing to their mental illness.
yeah.
Even like Fight Club is actually sort of within that
Right.
same
I mean, I
realm.
kind of mentioned with like a
Mhm.
twist, like it kind of happens. Like, yeah. I mean, he did have like
Yeah,
multiple personality
exactly.
disorder.
And then you find it at the end and it's like about his descent into this, and then also, it is kind of a disturbing
Mm,
movie that you feel uncomfortable like throughout.
yeah.
And that's the sort of vibe that you get in this movie as well. It's like you're not
Yeah.
supposed to be comfortable. You're not supposed to be like happy watching it. You're supposed
No.
to like experience something you haven't
Right.
experienced before. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it stands out to people.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered most of
Yeah.
the
I think it's a good summation of Joker.
definitely a great movie.
Definitely
Definitely gonna
recommend
do
it.
Yeah, definitely gonna do good in its second weekend too.
Oh yeah, because it broke the record, right, for October
Yeah, for the first
release,
week
right,
or
weekend.
something.
I think
Weekend.
I think opening weekend. I think
Opening
that's what it.
weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
2 million, and then the
Yeah.
last one was like 80.4 million with Venom.
That was Venom. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny actually. Like last 2 Octobers in a row, we're just like breaking records for
Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
October is becoming like the secret new.
Well, if they
Maybe
actually put good movies instead of like Paranormal Activity, yeah, that would
right,
happen.
exactly. We're they're finally realizing that there's like a huge market for like sort of darker kind of versions of other stories, and like Venom is like a darker
Yeah.
Marvel sort of movie where the villain is
Yeah.
like the main character, and then again we've got the Joker, and there's a market for it now.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was before. There used to be like crappy horror movies coming out in Halloween, and now they're like, oh, we're gonna actually start creating artistic horror like movies. These aren't horror movies, but they're like
Dark, thriller, suspense.
yeah. But yeah, tell us if you saw it. What did you guys think of the movie? I think overall the critical consensus was kind of mixed, and
So
the audience loved it.
the critics like gave it a super bad score on Rotten Tomatoes.
I thought it was like 69 or 70% or something.
Dude, no.
Has it been dropping?
I think it was really I think it was dropping.
I don't get critics. I feel
Unless
like
it was
just
up front, it was really low, and then maybe it's not anymore.
maybe. You can always check, but
then the audience score was really high.
yeah, I think audience score is like 90% when I checked.
I think I think also the perception, like the preconceived like ideas of this movie kind of put people off.
Yeah, and they kind of painted a narrative that wasn't
True at all.
reflective of the movie.
Yeah.
But you'd
If
think
you-
that when somebody would go in after having the wrong perspective, that it would like enlighten them to the correct
Right.
one, but
No.
instead it probably just makes them search for validation in their incorrect one.
I will say that's probably why it did so well, though. Controversy kind of helped it.
Oh yeah.
People are gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it no matter what. But I think the people that had a problem, basically were just gonna say, no, I'm not gonna watch it, and not have a problem, and not like listen to like and pay attention to the actual like commentary on our society.
And I think like if you ask people with mental illness what they thought of the movie, they probably would be like, it was very good. And I think, there's a lot of ways it's kind of scary, but you almost feel like you understand where he comes from. Like the more you understand mental illness, the more you understand Arthur Fleck. And I think the more you do that, then the more of a fascinating movie it is.
Yeah.
So there's just I think a perspective that if you don't go into the movie with, that you won't enjoy it as much, because you have to understand that this is like, it's a villain movie, but it's not. It's supposed to be like a new type of villain movie where we're supposed to see somebody who had the potential to do good become bad, and I think it stood out for that reason. Yeah, let us know what you guys think.
See you next episode. As always, thank you for listening and following.
Check us out every Thursday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are available.
You can find us on Instagram at Unstoppable Force Podcast and Twitter at UForcePod for news and updates.
We'll see you guys next week. And until then, stay unstoppable.